video. So I'm going to do 5 pages here, so if you don't need this page or you want to work on a different page, let me just show you the order I'm going in, and you can kind of skip around depending on what you're working on. So the first page I'm working on looks like this. It's the one with the cells at the top. The second page looks like this. It has cell theory and it has genetics on it. After that, the third page I'm going to work on is this one that starts with ecosystems. And then after that, the fourth page has these Venn diagrams starting with prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And then after that, the fifth page is this one that starts with photosynthesis and cellular respiration. A lot of these are repeating topics, but I just wanted to make sure I covered, everything, all the review sheets. And then the last page I'll be working on, the sixth page, is the mitosis and meiosis comparison. So let's go back to page 1. We're going to start talking about cells. So you learned last year that all living things are made up of one or more cells. So if something is unicellular, it is made up of one cell, and the example you really need to memorize for that one is bacteria is unicellular, and we and plants and all living, or mostly a lot of other living things, are multicellular. Okay, we have trillions and trillions and trillions of cells. Alright, so the first guy who called them cells was a scientist named Robert Hooke. He was the first person to look at a piece of cork, those things that go on top of a bottle of wine, under a microscope, and he was like, oh, they look like little rooms or little cells. So that's where we get the word cells from, Hooke. We use a microscope as a scientific tool to look at cells because they are really, really, really small. There are 2 types of cells that you need to be familiar with. The first one is animal cells. You need to know animal cells have a round shape, like this one. Plants are made out of plant cells. And the way you know if it's a plant cell is if it has a rectangular or box-shaped shape. So plant cells are rectangular. Animal cells are going to be round. Just like the human body has organs like a heart, lungs, stomach, my organs, cells have organelles, or tiny parts. And each of these parts does something for the cell so that it can keep the organism alive. Okay? So draw lines. So you need to know the cell membrane is this part on the outside of a cell. The cell membrane is like the door of a cell. It lets things in and out. A cell wall is only found in plants. So the outside part of a plant cell that's hard and rigid is called the cell wall. Think of a cell wall as like a brick wall. It supports the plant. So let's put a star P next to this one because that's only in plant cells. Animal cells do not have a cell wall. Chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are going to be this little thingy over here. And again, these are only found in plant cells. Think of the chloroplast as like the kitchen of the plant cell, because that is where the plants make their own food. Plants can't eat Chipotle like us. They have to make their own energy or food, and they do that in the chloroplast. Chromosomes are found in the nucleus of a cell. So let's do nucleus first. The nucleus is the most obvious organelle. It's this big circle thing over here. So think of the nucleus as like the brain of the cell. It controls the cell's activity. It directs the cell's activities. And then inside the cell, you have all of these little things called chromosomes. Chromosomes are inside the nucleus of a cell. Okay, and we'll talk more about chromosomes later. But chromosomes are made out of DNA. So you need to also know that DNA is found in the nucleus of cells. Think of the cytoplasm as a jello floor, the floor of a cell. So the cytoplasm is anywhere that's the floor of a cell. It's found in both animal and plant cells. Mitochondria are found in both animal cells and plant cells. So all of these like little kidney-shaped bean things, these are mitochondria. Think of mitochondria as like a factory, and sometimes we like to call it a powerhouse. Okay, the mitochondria makes energy for the cell. All right, vacuole. Think of a vacuole as like a locker or a cabinet. It's where you store things, where you keep them for later. Plant cells have a large central vacuole, and this is mostly filled with water because, you know, plants need a lot of water. And then animal cells have a lot of little vacuoles that store things like food, water, and waste. So after you figure out where they are located in the cell, you need to be able to tell me what each of them does. And try to use these to kind of help you. The analogies. A cell membrane is like a door. A nucleus is like the brain. Okay? So, a round structure that is the control center of the cell, that is the nucleus. So we're going to write, let's just write nucleus. Or you can write the number 7 because it's number 7. Performs photosynthesis in plants. So how do plants make their food? Through photosynthesis. They make their food in the kitchen. That's the chloroplast of a cell, of a plant cell. And again, this is only in plants. Animal cells, our cells don't have any chloroplast. A thick liquid in which organelles float. This is called cytoplasm. This is the floor of a cell. So all of these organelles are floating in the cytoplasm. Controls what goes in and out of a cell, like a door. So remember, this one is cell membrane. Okay, gives shape and supports plant cells. So this is the other one that's only in plant cells. The thick outer covering of a cell that helps plants stand up, that's called the cell wall. It gives them structure and support. And again, you can put a star P, because chloroplasts and cell walls are only in plant cells. They convert food energy that the cell can use. So anytime you see this word energy in the cell, there are two cell parts that make energy for the cell. Chloroplasts give energy for plants, and then plants also have another one that animal cells have, that's called the mitochondria. The mitochondria converts all the food we eat into energy that we can use. Contain the information used to direct all cell activity. So the key word here is information, specifically genetic information. Those are chromosomes. Your chromosomes have DNA, or made of DNA, and your DNA has the information that tells the cell what to do. A space used to store substances, like when you store things in your locker or your cabinet or your backpack. Those are the vacuoles. Vacuoles are used for storage. Okay? So I'm just checking off these. And then the last one, which one makes or produces protein for the cell? Those are the ribosomes. I like to think of ribosome as like a grill. When you go outside, you grill meat. Meat is a type of protein. So ribosomes make proteins for the cell. Okay, cellular respiration is the big fancy word for how do I convert, or how do my cells convert the food I eat into energy so that I don't die. Because if you don't eat, you die. So your cells need energy. So what are the reactants? Another word for reactants is ingredients. So first thing you need is oxygen. Oxygen is one of the ingredients. So you breathe in. That helps your cells get some energy. And the other one is, of course, glucose, which is in a lot of the food that we eat. And you should know the chemical for glucose, C6H12O6. Okay, those are the reactants for cellular respiration. So if I eat something and I'm breathing, I'm converting this into energy. Where does this happen? It happens in here, in the mitochondria. Remember, the mitochondria is like the factory. It gives us energy. It's the powerhouse. Okay, what are the products? So, what does the mitochondria make for me in cellular respiration? There are 3 products. The first one is carbon dioxide. So, you eat something and you kind of breathe out. That's part of cellular respiration. CO2 is the formula. It also gives us water as a product. And then, of course, the most important thing, it gives us energy. And we call this energy ATP. That's the energy that your cells use to do their jobs. So this is the fancy word for how do I get the food I eat and the oxygen I breathe, how do I make that into energy so I don't die? It happens in the mitochondria, and this is called cellular respiration. Okay, the next worksheet is this one. A little bit more about cells, and then we're going to get into genetics. So, remember the cell theory. There are 3 parts that you kind of have to know. The first one says, all living things, a cactus, a bacteria, humans, that zebra, are made up of cells, either one cell or many cells. Number 2, cells carry out basic functions, like respiration, like reproduction, like making food for plants. Those are some basic functions to keep you alive. And then the second thing, or the last thing, the third thing is all cells come from other cells. And we'll talk about more in that in the video, but you guys should remember one cell divides and it makes 2 identical cells. And we'll talk more about that later. Okay, there are 2 types of transport, cellular transport, that you need to be aware of. The first one is moving matter, like just stuff, from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. This is called diffusion. So if I have like this over here, okay, in here this is high concentration, so I'm going to go right high over here because everything's so tightly packed. And out here they're kind of farther spaced out, so this is low concentration. So when the stuff in here goes from an area of high concentration to this outside area of low concentration, we call that diffusion. When you move water from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration across a cell membrane, that is a special kind of transport called osmosis. So they both basically mean the same thing. You're going from high to low. But when you're talking about water across the cell membrane, that's going to be called osmosis. Okay, you need to know the organization of life from smallest to largest. The basic unit, and you hear this word a lot, of all living things is a cell. A group of cells that does the same job is called a tissue. And they have to have, it's the same cell. Okay? So it looks like over here we're talking about a stomach, right? So these are all stomach cells. So a group of cells make a tissue. When a group of tissues come together, it makes an organ. So this looks like a stomach. And a stomach is made from tissues. And those tissues are made from cells. When you have a lot of organs working together, like the mouth, like the stomach, like your intestines, when you have organs working together, you have an organ system. Like the reproductive system, the respiratory system, the muscular system, the nervous system. And then when you have all of those systems working together, you have one living thing, or you have a whole organism. Alright, switching gears a little bit, and now we're going to go into genetics. So genetics is all about DNA and how you inherit or learn different types of traits. So, name one trait that is inherited from mom and dad. So there's a lot here. You can do eye color. You can inherit height. You can inherit skin color. Okay? Etc., etc. Name one trait that is not. We call these traits acquired traits, meaning you acquired them, you learned them. So you learned how to walk, right? You learned how to speak English, so that's a language. You're not born with a language. You learned if you know how to ride a bike. That is a acquired trait. You don't inherit these from your parents. Okay, a mutation is a permanent change in your DNA. Okay, mutation. Speaking of DNA, you need to know what DNA looks like. Okay, you guys have seen this before, right? And it has a lot of stuff going on inside. So label the DNA structure with sugar, phosphate, adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. So the sides of DNA are made out of sugar and phosphate. So let's just write sugar, phosphate, S and P. Sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate. Phosphate is just a chemical. Alright? So, the sides of DNA are made out of sugar and phosphate. Inside of DNA, we have our 4 bases, nitrogen bases. These are the 4 bases: adenine, guanine, thymine, and cytosine. Okay? A is adenine. A always goes with T, thymine. G is guanine. This base, guanine, always goes with C. If this one is T, thymine, then this one has to be A, adenine. If this one is C, cytosine, then this base has to be guanine. Okay? So, again, bases in the middle, and the sides are made out of sugar and phosphate. What structure in each cell controls heredity? So what controls you getting blue eyes, you getting blonde hair? That's your DNA. Your DNA controls your traits. You need to know, what is this shape called? What do we call this shape? This shape is called a double helix. Double helix. How many do people have? This question's kind of weird. So you need to just out of here, how many chromosomes do people have? People have 46 chromosomes. Okay? Remember, chromosomes are inside the nucleus of an atom. So if you have a cell, this is your nucleus of a cell. Inside, you're going to have 46 chromosomes. And chromosomes are made out of DNA. So this is DNA, right? When DNA gets coiled up inside the nucleus, they make these X shapes, and these are your chromosomes. You get 23 from your mom, and you get 23 from your dad. That's why you have 46 chromosomes. What matches with A? We said it was T. A always goes with T. T always goes with A. What matches with G? C. And C always goes with G. What are genes? Genes are instructions that make proteins. Your DNA has the instructions to make proteins. Alright? A gene is basically one part of DNA. Gene. Kind of messy. Alright. Moving on down. Okay, remember these like Punnett squares? If it's a capital B, you have brown eyes. If it's a lowercase b, you have blue eyes. So this means if it's a capital B, that's called a dominant trait. That's the trait that's going to show up or appear. If it's a lowercase b or a lowercase letter, we call that a recessive trait. It's hidden. Tell the eye color of the baby. So if you end up with two capital B's, those are two dominant traits or two dominant genes. That baby is going to have brown eyes. If you have a Punnett square and their gene says a capital B and a lowercase b, the dominant covers or dominates the recessive. So the recessive is hidden. So this recessive, the blue eyes, is not going to appear. So this one is still going to be brown eyes. Now, if you have two lowercase letters, that means the recessive gene is going to show in the living thing. So this baby is going to have blue eyes. Which trait is recessive? The one with the lowercase letter, the lowercase b, is blue eyes. That's the recessive trait. And then this is the dominant trait. Trait just means characteristic. Like my eye color is a trait. My hair color is a trait. My skin color is a trait. Okay, you need to know the difference between mitosis and meiosis, which we'll cover later too. Mitosis results in two identical cells with a full set of chromosomes. Meiosis is the division of gametes or sex cells, and we'll talk more about this later, and you get half the number of chromosomes. Okay, all of this DNA genetics, they help us classify or put into categories different organisms. So maybe this rings a bell, but this is how we sort of organize all living things. The biggest level, or the level that's the The largest is called kingdom. And you should remember there are like 5 kingdoms: animal kingdom, plant kingdom, fungi, protist, and something else, I forgot. So, kingdom, and then below that we have phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Okay? So, this line is the kingdom: animal kingdom, plant kingdom. This is phylum. Chordata means you have a spinal cord. Arthropoda, those are like your crustaceans, like your lobster, your grasshopper. So class: Mammalia, mammals. Angiosperm, that's a type of tree. Insectae, that's, insects. Order, you don't have to know these, but some of these should be familiar to you. Which 2 organisms are most closely related? Let's see. This is animal kingdom, plant kingdom, so that's different. Animal kingdom, animal kingdom, animal kingdom. So we have a house cat, I'm not doing this one, a lion, a horse, and a grasshopper. So they all in the same kingdom, okay? How about phylum? Chordata, 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 arthropoda. Okay, so these 3 are in the same phylum. So let's just eliminate that, because that's in a different phylum. It's asking you which one of these are most closely related. Let's go down to class. We have Mammalia, Mammalia, Mammalia. Okay, these are all mammals. Let's keep going. Order: carnivore, carnivore, ungulates. That's different. So these are the same. Let's keep going. Family, feline family, feline family. And then when we get to genus and species, this is where things get different. Okay? But they have all of these in common. So the ones that are most closely related are lion and the house cat. Genus and species, this is how we scientifically name animals. So you guys have probably heard this before. Humans are called Homo sapiens. Okay, Homo, and the first one I forget is always capitalized. You always capitalize the genus. Homo is our genus, and then sapiens is our species. So the scientific name for a lion is Panthera leo. Which organism is most different from the others? Well, obviously it's this one, because this is from the plant kingdom. So let's just write red maple. Okay, natural selection. Think about natural selection as only the strongest or healthiest, or the members of a population who are most adapted. Only the strongest will survive and reproduce. Okay, so natural selection, the offspring that are best adapted to the habitat will survive. It says each species of animals and plants produces fertile, meaning you can have babies, viable, which means you are alive offspring. So all organisms give birth to things that have the capability of surviving. All offspring is another fancy word for, it's what animals call their kids. So offspring is kids, well, animal kids. Obviously you don't call lions kids, you call them offspring. All offspring are not identical, they have variations. So like I might have brown eyes, but you have blue eyes. That's a variation. And this is what natural selection is. And you should know that Charles Darwin was the scientist who came up with this. Okay. Ecosystems. Okay. What is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is all living, and we call those biotic, and non-living, and we call those abiotic, things in an area that interact or communicate with each other, that interact with each other. Okay, so a desert ecosystem can be like cactus, rocks, scorpions, snake. A marine or ocean ecosystem is like killer whale, phytoplankton, water, air. So it's all living and non-living things. Okay. Abiotic means non-living. All ecosystems have non-living or abiotic factors, like rocks, like soil or the dirt, like water, like air, like the sun or heat. All of these things affects living things. Okay? Biotic means living. So if you are a biotic factor in an ecosystem, you're alive. So bacteria is a biotic factor because bacteria is a living thing. Trees and flowers and grass, flowers are biotic, plants are biotic. Plants are living. Okay? And then of course, animals like birds, jaguars, whatever you want to write down. These are all biotic or living things. Okay, in an ecosystem, you have producers, consumers, and decomposers. A producer is an organism or living thing that makes its own food. Okay? Producer is a fancy word for plant. So when you think producer, think plants. Plants cannot go to Chipotle and get a burrito. A plant, like a tree, they have to make their own food. How do they make their own food? We'll talk about that later, but you guys should remember they need sun, they need water, and they have a lot going on with photosynthesis. Okay? And a synonym for producer that you'll probably see on the SOL is heterotroph. Oh, my bad, not heterotroph. Autotroph. Autotroph. Auto means automatically by yourself. You make your own food. Okay, an example of producers. Cactus is a producer. Grass is a producer. Trees are a producer because they make their own food or energy. Okay? Consumers. We are consumers. It's an organism that must eat another organism to survive. Perfect. You should know there are 3 types of consumers. There are herbivores. They eat only producers or plants. Okay? Plants are living things, so they have to eat this. So like a cow eats grass. Another type of producer is carnivore. They eat only consumers or only meat. Okay? So this is like a shark eating a fish, only other consumers. And the last one is an omnivore. Omnivore, think human or bears, because we eat both plants and animals. Another word for consumer that you might see is heterotroph. Heterotroph. Hetero means different, so I have to eat different things. Autotroph, I eat one thing by myself. I have to make my own food. Okay, ecosystems have producers, consumers, and decomposers. Decomposers are organisms that recycle or break down dead organisms. They eat dead things. So the decomposers are necessary. If a cheetah eats an antelope and he leaves the antelope carcass, all the bones there, it can't just stay there. Someone has to get rid of it. That's where the decomposers come in. They recycle / break down dead organisms. Examples of decomposers you need to know. Mushrooms are decomposers. Anytime you see like a mushroom in like a field of grass, something just died there. It could have been a bird, a squirrel, okay? Worms and other insects are decomposers, and bacteria are also decomposers. Energy. All the energy in an ecosystem begins with the sun. The sun is the source of all energy in an ecosystem. Everything starts with the sun. Okay? Alright. Food chains. Food chains. A food chain describes the feeding relationship between a producer and a single chain of consumers. So, you need to know the sun begins, you draw a little sun there. The sun is the source of all energy. Grass gets energy from the sun. Okay? A mouse can eat grass and it gets energy from a grass. And a snake gets energy from a mouse by eating the mouse, and a hawk gets energy from the snake by eating the snake. Okay? This is a food chain. A food chain is just one after another. Alright? So, biomes are defined by plants and animals. Okay? And I'm also going to add here climate. So a biome is a large region that has similar plants and animals and climate. Alright? So, I don't think there's a section here with your biomes, but you should know your biomes and a little bit about each of them. So remember, we have the tropical rainforest, we have the desert, we have the grasslands. Hopefully these are all ringing a bell. We have deciduous forests or a temperate forest. We have the taiga forest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing one. Tundra is the Arctic. It's the cold one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 land biomes. Okay, so you should know a little bit about each of these. And then the aquatic biomes, we have 2. We have freshwater, which is your lakes, your rivers, and then we also have marine, which is the ocean or salt water. Okay, I don't think there's any study guides with this on it, but like I said, you should know at least like 1 or 2 important facts about each of these biomes. Okay, deciduous trees are in a deciduate forest. We sometimes call these temperate forests. Okay, we live here. This is Virginia, VA. Virginia is a temperate forest. So, deciduous means trees will lose their leaves. Trees lose leaves due to seasons. So that's why our trees, they look very bare in their fall and winter. Those are deciduous trees. Coniferous trees are found in the taiga biome, and we also like to call them evergreen trees. Evergreen. They are forever green. These are the trees that they don't lose their leaves in the winter time. They're still green. So these are like your pine trees with needles. And these needles cause them to not drop their leaves during the season. So taiga, pine trees with needles that don't drop due to seasons. Okay. All right, this is a food pyramid or an energy pyramid. It shows the energy in an ecosystem. Okay, so in an energy pyramid, on the bottom we have producers. This is where most of the energy is in a food pyramid. Why? Because the sun gives a lot of energy to plants. As you go up, you lose energy. There's less energy being transferred. Okay? So, primary consumers eat producers. Primary consumer is a fancy name for herbivore. They eat plants only. And then over here at the top we have secondary consumers. Your secondary consumers are your carnivores, or they can be omnivores. It's just depending on which environment you're in. And if you want to go above that, we have tertiary consumers. But this, we don't have space for that. And those are like, you know, like the shark. Like no one hunts a shark. They're on the top of the pyramid or the top of a food chain. Okay. We have one word on here that you need to know, like the order of. And again, there's no space on this in your study guide. So you need to know, you can write this on here. In an ecosystem, we have one organism. Like, let's just say a deer. Okay? A group of the same organism makes a population. Okay? So let's just say a group of deer. Right? If I have different populations together, that makes a community. So let's say in like a forest, I have a group of deer. I have a group of owls. I have a group of trees. A community is a group of different organisms. Population is the same organism. So if I say, hey, look at that population of deer, I'm saying, hey, look at that group of deer. Or if I say, hey, look at that community in the forest, I'm saying, hey, look at those deer and owls and trees and insects. Different communities together make up an ecosystem, which we defined earlier at the top of this page. An ecosystem is all of the living and non-living things. So this is where we start to see like air, rocks, and then all of the ecosystems together make up the biome, which are these biomes that we just listed. So, species is a group of organisms. Organism is a living thing that can reproduce or have offspring, kids. So an example of a species is lions, a species of lions. Okay? A community, we kind of defined over here, a group of different organisms that live in a common location. So our example was animals in a forest, like deer, owls, and trees, or animals and plants in forest. Okay, competition is when two or more organisms fight for resources. An example of that is if you have like two deers fighting over a girl, fighting over a mate. Or if you have two male lions fighting each other over territory, competition. Okay, symbiotic relationships. Symbiosis means two different organisms that are in close proximity to each other. They interact with each other a lot. Two different organisms that interact a lot with each other. Okay? Mutualism is when both organisms are happy. So both organisms benefit. Okay? The classic example of this is the clownfish and the anemone. Okay? You guys have seen Finding Nemo, when Nemo's dad lives in the anemone, that little jellyfish looking thing. So the clownfish is there, and he gets to live in the anemone. Usually an anemone will sting a fish and the fish will die. But the anemone does not kill the clownfish because it wants it to clean itself. So the clownfish get to live in the anemone for shelter, so they're happy, and the anemone gets to be cleaned. So they're both being benefited. So this is an example of mutualism. Okay? Parasitism is when you see like a parasite. So the parasite is happy, but one organism is being harmed. Okay? So one benefits, the parasite, and one is harmed. Okay? An example of this is if your dog has a little tick in it, like a little insect, that tick is sucking the blood and it's harming your dog, it's making it sick. So the dog is sad, but the tick is happy because he's feeding on your blood. That is called a parasitic relationship. Okay. Commensalism is when one organism is happy and the other one is Gucci. He doesn't really care. He's not being affected. Okay? So one is being benefited and one is unaffected. He's saying, I don't care. You're not benefiting me. You're not harming me. I'm fine. An example of commensalism is, do not judge my drawing, but if I have, this is an ugly drawing. This is a rhino, okay? Those rhinos that live in the grasslands, they have birds sitting on the top of them, okay? The bird is happy because it's eating the insects off the rhino. The rhino is unaffected. He doesn't care that the bird is there. So this is an example of commensalism. One is happy, one is benefiting, and one is unaffected. Okay? Alright. Woo. Let's switch gears again and go back to talking about cells. There are two types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Okay? Excuse me. And you have to fill in this word bank. fill in this Venn diagram using this word bank. So let's just call this prokaryotic, and this is eukaryotic, and then what do they have in common? So the key thing here, pro, remember no. No what? No nucleus. So prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, lack or they don't have a nucleus. Eukaryotic, remember, your cells, of course they have a nucleus, okay? So that's the major difference. So ribosomes, they both have ribosomes. They both have, ribosomes make protein, okay? They both have ribosomes. This is not really that important, but this DNA is linear in eukaryotic cells, and it's circular in prokaryotic cells. But what you need to know is they both have DNA, okay? In eukaryotic cells, the DNA is inside the nucleus. In prokaryotic cells, like bacteria, prokaryotic cells are very simple. So this is literally all this is like a bacteria. It has cytoplasm, cell membrane, cell wall, some ribosomes, but no nucleus. And it has a little tail, that's it. And then eukaryotic cells, you guys already know they have so many different things in them. Cell membrane, they both have a cell membrane. Okay. They both have like the basic parts, like cell membrane and ribosomes. Okay. No membrane covered organelles. So all of these organelles, like chloroplast, mitochondria. So which one of these has no membrane covered organelles? That's prokaryotic. No, I'm going to change the wording on this a little bit. I'm going to say no membrane bound organelles. That basically means all the stuff that's inside of a regular cell, like a plant cell or an animal cell, they're non-existent in prokaryotic cells. Okay? And then eukaryotic cells do have membrane bound, which means inside the membrane, organelles. Okay. The key thing here, again, eukaryotic cells, you have a nucleus. Pro means no. Prokaryotic has no nucleus. Okay, we did that. And like I said, they both have the basic cell organelles. They both have cytoplasm, cell membrane, ribosomes, DNA. But this is the key. Eukaryotic cells have no nucleus. Eukaryotic cells have a nucleus. Prokaryotic cells have no nucleus. Okay, this one should be easy because we just did a video. We just did the video. So plant cells, animal cells, or both. Okay, so they both have. Actually, no. Lysosomes are mostly in plant cells. Lysosomes. Okay, lysosomes clean the cell. They're like a janitor. They clean the cell. Cell membrane. Both animal and plant cells have a cell membrane. Okay. Cell wall. Remember we put a star P next to that. Only plant cells have a cell wall. And remember, animal cells are round. Plant cells are rectangular. Okay, Golgi, they both have Golgi bodies. It says Golgi complex, but I like to call them Golgi bodies. Golgi bodies, think of them as the mailman. See, sometimes I forget like what they do, but I always remember the analogy. A Golgi body is like a mailman. It packages materials to leave the cell. Okay. Small vacuoles. Animal cells have lots of small vacuoles, and plant cells have large vacuoles. Okay, and we saw that over here. Okay, plant cells have, or excuse me, animal cells have a lot of small vacuoles, and animal cells have one large central vacuole where they store mostly water. Okay, mitochondria, they both have mitochondria. Check. Chloroplasts, that was another thing we star P'd in the last, in the first worksheet. Only plant cells have chloroplasts. Guarantee you're probably going to get a question on this on the SOL. They always ask it. Chloroplasts and cell membrane are only in plant cells. Both of them have a nucleus. Okay? Both of them have ribosomes. And endoplasmic reticulum, we can call that the ER. They both have an ER. An ER is like a taxi. A taxi transports you. The endoplasmic reticulum transports material around the cell. Okay? So the biggest takeaway here is animal and plant cells have a lot of the same main parts. ER, cell membrane, Golgi body, mitochondria, nucleus, ribosomes. They both have cytoplasm. Okay? The key thing here you need to know is only plant cells have cell walls and chloroplasts. And animal cells have small vacuoles, and plant cells have a large central vacuoles. Okay, we did this already. It's just go from most general to most specific. So domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Okay, not bad. Okay, and then we did this already. So basic unit is a cell. A group of cells make tissues. A group of the same tissues make an organ. A group of organs make an organ system. And organ systems working together make an organism, which is one living thing. Perfect. Okay, almost done. Two more pages. Photosynthesis happens in producers, which is our fancy word for plants. So, how do plants get their food? Not get their food, but we call plants producers because they produce their own energy or their own food. Where does it happen? Remember the chloroplasts inside the cell. Chloroplasts in plant cells. They're like the kitchens. That's where the plant cooks their food to make their energy. Okay? So, chloroplast is where photosynthesis takes place. Okay? Just like cellular respiration, which we already did, remember? We'll come back to that. Photosynthesis has reactants or ingredients and products. What does it make? So, in order for plants to make food or energy, to make their own energy, they need three things. You already know what they are. They need water, which is H2O. Okay? they need carbon dioxide. They need to absorb that, which is CO2. And they need light energy from the sun. Okay, all living things, all animals exhale carbon dioxide, and then plants are going to absorb that. Okay, and then they absorb water through their roots. They absorb carbon dioxide through the through openings in their leaf called stomata in leaves. Okay, so all of this happens. So this tree is made out of plant cells. Inside the plant cell we have the nucleus, and then we have all of these little chloroplasts that are going to make our products. They're going to take water, carbon dioxide, and energy from the sun, and they're going to cook it, and they're going to make products. The first product they make is for us. What do plants make for us? Oxygen gas, which is O2. Okay? And then what plants make for themselves for energy is glucose sugar, or C6H12O6. Okay? That's the chemical formula. So you might see this on the SOL, the chemical formula or the chemical equation for photosynthesis. You take water plus carbon dioxide, and then you take energy from the sun, and then that makes glucose for the plant to eat and oxygen for us to breathe. Okay? Cellular respiration is kind of like the opposite of photosynthesis. So when plants make oxygen for us, how do we take this oxygen and make it into energy for us so we don't die? So where does it happen? Again, this is kind of a review. We just did this. Mitochondria. Reactants, we already did this one. So now we're going to take the oxygen that plants made for us, and then the glucose that's in the food we eat. Okay? And the mitochondria is going to put those together, and they're going to make us carbon dioxide, water, and energy for us. And we said energy in the form of ATP. Okay? So we kind of exchange gases. So if I'm a human, and I've kind of seen this question on the SOL too, and this is a tree, okay, we exhale and we give to the plant carbon dioxide, and then that plant can do photosynthesis and produce oxygen, or O2, for us to breathe. And then we take this oxygen and the food we eat, and then we make carbon dioxide, and it's like a cycle. So you need to know plants and animals participate in gas exchanges. We give plants carbon dioxide to absorb, and then plants make photosynthesis for their food and oxygen for us, and then we inhale that oxygen, and it just goes round and round. Okay. Genetic material in all living things. Again, a lot of this is repetitive, is DNA. Mutations, we already said, are permanent changes to DNA. Okay, what are genes? Instructions to make proteins to make proteins. Okay. We'll talk about this in the last thing on the last page in more detail. Mitosis is two identical cells and a complete set of identical chromosomes. Meiosis is 4 gametes or sex cells, and they produce half the number of chromosomes. And again, the next paper will go into that in more detail. Osmosis is the diffusion of water from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. I already talked about that. Osmosis Jones, that movie. Okay. Cell theory. Again, all living things are made up of cells. Cells carry out basic functions. Cells can only come from other cells. Alright. Characteristics of all living things. So, plants, animals, and bacteria, they all have these things in common. Okay? All of them are made of cells. Okay? Remember, animals and plants are multicellular, and bacteria is unicellular. Bacteria literally only has one cell. Okay? All living things obtain and use energy. Okay? Energy, this could be food. Okay? But all living things need energy. All living things grow and develop. So plants start as a seed and they germinate and they sprout. Humans are babies and they grow up to adults. Lion cubs grow up to be lion king. All living things reproduce or have offspring. Okay, some do it sexually, sexual reproduction, which is two parents, and some of it's asexual, it's one parent. So most living things do sexual reproduction, but then we also have like starfish and some bacteria reproduce, or all bacteria reproduce asexually. And then all living things respond to stimuli, which means they respond to their environment. If it rains in the rainforest, the animal has to do something to survive. If you touch something really hot, you immediately pull away because you don't want to, burn yourself. So you're constantly reacting to your environment. All right. Last page of review. What's the difference between mitosis and meiosis? Okay, mitosis, the purpose of mitosis is for cell growth and repair. Let me fix that focus real quick. Okay, characteristics of mitosis. It's just one division, or it divides only one time. And again, we say you have a full set of chromosomes. So in humans, that would be 46 chromosomes. So you start with 46 chromosomes in the nucleus, and then you divide and you make two identical cells, and each of them should have 46 chromosomes in the nucleus. And they do prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase once. Okay? The results of mitosis are two identical daughter cells. Okay? So this is the parent cell, right? And then these two are the daughter cells. So examples of cells that do mitosis are your skin cells, your hair cells, and your body cells. Okay? Your nervous cells, your heart cells, your stomach cells. Okay? Before we talk about meiosis, let's talk about PMAT. What does that mean again? So, look over here where it says mitosis. So remember, mitosis has a couple of different parts. The first part of mitosis is right here. We'll call this is the P in PMAT, prophase. Okay? Prophase is when you can see the chromosomes and the nucleus breaks down. Okay? The cell is getting ready to divide. Okay? PMAT. So after P, it's M. After prophase, we have metaphase. Metaphase is easy because that's when the chromosomes line up in the middle. Okay? After metaphase, in mitosis, is the A, it's anaphase. Anaphase is when these chromosomes start to pull apart. They go to different sides of the cell. And then the T in telophase, this picture is kind of, skips a step. So telophase is when you see two nuclei. So the cell is just getting ready to split. It's not done splitting yet, but I see one nucleus here and I see another nucleus here. So the nucleus that broke down during prophase is now reappearing. So this is called telophase. Telophase means you see two nuclei. We don't say nucleus, we say nuclei. So this is mitosis. Mitosis is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. And then after that finishes, the cell does something called cytokinesis, and that's when it goes, it splits into your two identical daughter cells. Okay? Meiosis, the purpose of meiosis is for reproduction, making offspring. Okay? The characteristics, it's two divisions, and you get half the chromosomes. And they do prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, they do it twice. The results are 4 cells with half the chromosomes. And the only cells that do meiosis are the gamete, the sex cells. So sperm cells and egg cells. Okay, and then these are going to be called the sex cells for reproduction. Okay? So the key thing here is you get half the chromosomes. Remember, humans have 46 chromosomes. Okay? You get half from your mom. Your mom is a female, so she has egg cells, right? So half of 46 is 23. So in this egg cell, there are 23 chromosomes. The other half of the 46 chromosomes you get from your dad. Okay? Your dad has, the sperm cell, and that sperm cell is going to have the 23 chromosomes. Okay? So sperm plus egg equals your 46 chromosome living thing. Okay? So the main thing about mitosis and meiosis, Okay, so the announcements were on. So, like I was saying, the main thing about mitosis and meiosis is meiosis is only for sex cells, okay? And it's half the chromosomes. All of your other cells in your body, your hair, your skin, your heart, your stomach cells, they do mitosis, okay? So mitosis involved in asexual or sexual reproduction. Mitosis, they just reproduce by themselves. So if I have a cut on my skin, the skin cells are just going to reproduce by themselves. So if you reproduce by yourself, that's asexual reproduction. And again, meiosis with the sex cells, so that's sexual reproduction, sperm in the egg. Are daughter cells clones of parents? For mitosis, yes. Okay, if I break my skin, that skin better be the new skin cell better be the same. In meiosis, no, they're not going to be exactly the same as the parent cell. Number of cell divisions, we said mitosis was 1, but meiosis, they go through PMAT twice. Okay, mitosis produces 2 identical daughter cells, and meiosis makes 4. Okay, and we see that down here. This is meiosis. We have 4 daughter cells. Okay, mitosis and meiosis. Type of daughter cell. Type of daughter cells, body or gametes. For mitosis, it's body cells. And then for meiosis, it's gamete, which are your sex cells. And then diploid or haploid, I don't even know what that means, but mitosis is diploid and haploid. But like I said, main thing about these two differences, I would say, are this one, and this one. So just know mitosis is for your body cells, and then meiosis is going to be for your sex cells. All right, that's all 6 worksheets. We did this one, and then we did this one, and then we did that one. Well, I don't know what the order these are now, but yeah, like I said, you want to go over your biomes again, because that wasn't on here, and then just try to review these sheets, because you are going to see a lot of these materials on the sort of 7th grade section of the SOL.